Oh, no, 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 not at
Watching
all.
this, that's fine too. But it usually is a little bit easier because I'm also presenting, so I can't look at all of you because I
Yep,
want you to be able to see my screen.
absolutely.
Okay. Hey guys, I'm going to admit everybody in the room and we'll give it a
Sure.
couple minutes here. Hello, everybody. Please let me know if you
Hello.
can hear us. And we just ask that everybody kind of mute their mics to begin with. But I know Alex, our lovely presenter, is going to ask you guys to keep your cameras on if possible, just because you know what, it's pretty daunting being up there presenting, but it's nice to kind of see people and have people's reactions and stuff like that. So if that's possible, please turn on your camera. And so I'll do like a quick intro here. We'll get started, and then we'll let people in as they come in. But my name is Amanda for anybody I haven't met. So I'm with the WRLA. I'm the VP of Biz Dev and Marketing here. So I'm working with our team to really build out our webinar offerings in terms of education. And so that basically allows us to give these free webinars on lunch. We lean on our subject matter experts, which are our members, so such like Alex. So relevant, kind of quick, bite-sized learnings that everybody can take for their businesses. And I think I'm going to introduce Matthew here, if he can wave. Matthew
Hello.
is our workforce development coordinator. So I don't know if you've heard of the program Let's Go Build, but basically we have we're running career fairs. We have a job board with paid advertising going towards in it. We've had almost 2,500 views just last month to the job board with over 100 applications submitted. So it's been pretty successful. We're basically collecting all HR information. We're running HR webinars. We're partnering with strategic partners like DMC to provide these services if you don't have something in house, as well as like we have Natalie Bell Consulting. She's actually coming in on September 15th officially, so she can help basically create documents for your HR. So if you need an HR resource manual, she can help with that kind of stuff as well, and we'll provide a discount for to WRLA members. And she can provide training and technical advice on anything like onboarding, termination, anything like that, or be providing critical feedback to your team as well. So we have lots spilled out, and Matthew is kind of the attract pillar for the WRLA, so that's where he comes in. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce Alex here. So Alex Mather is leads the building materials division at DMC Recruitment and is a founding partner of the business. So she's a familiar face at the industry trade shows, especially the WRLA trade show. I'm sure many of you guys have seen her and events. So Alex enjoys promoting DMC's unique search capability to what has been a historically underserved segment of the market. She leverages her extensive industry knowledge and vast network to support the searches of her team, as well as the needs of her own clients. She has worked exclusively within the building products sector for over a decade. So, Alex, you can take it away.
Hello, hi, hello everybody. It's probably going to be annoying for you for a second because I'm just going to look and see. But thank you for those who did turn on their camera. I'm sure if you've done these, it's like presenting to a black hole is sometimes a little bit difficult. But what I'd like to do is thank you for those that have turned it on. But I'm have a presentation prepared and I'm going to move through that. But at the same time, recruitment, human resources, staffing, this side of the industry that we work on is sometimes a little bit of a mystery to some people, depending on what you do, what your function is, what your role is, what your business does. So I'm really happy to take questions as well as we go along if we're on a topic that you want to ask something specific about. So really happy to do that. So thank you all for joining today, and thank you to the WRLA for hosting. DMC, as Amanda said, has been a long-term WRLA member. We are Canada's largest and only search firm dedicated to the building supply chain. We work right across North America, but we are founded and all of our employees are in Canada, and it is our core market. So we're actually headquartered in Kelowna. I lead our building materials team, and we have a group, and I know some of you have worked with us in the past. But building materials is a unique industry, and it has a unique need for talent as well. So that's really where DMC was born. It has been a previously underserved market in terms of, specialty recruitment services. So what I'm hoping to do is, for those of you that have worked with, many recruitment firms in the past, if those of you have not worked with external agencies, just want to go through a little bit more of a recruitment 101, and I've tailored it to our industry, which is exactly what we do, because we do building materials, architecture and design, and construction and development across North America. So hopefully this will be of interest. So let me just see if I can, there we go. So working with recruiters. So a little bit about what recruiters actually do. This is external recruiters, not internal in-house recruiters that we're talking about. Some tips on when to reach out, how to engage, the different types of solutions, and some of the fine print that you might come across when engaging with a firm or considering it, and then some, of the intricacies of the industry for building a partnership with a search firm, as and when you find somebody that you like. So, in a perfect world, an external recruitment agency, the main thing that someone that is dedicated and specialized can do is save time through their expertise of being able to go out and find suitable candidates for what the need is. So they ideally are going to be able to take over the search. Um, External recruitment, we like to make the, distinguish it from internal recruitment, which is more of a human resources function. Um, a lot of businesses may assume that an HR function can take over all recruitment needs for a business. We have very strong partnerships with our, HR interfaces that we work with our clients, and it's a great relationship, but we do have different skill sets. And typically when we, work with many of our HR partners, if they've been given 20 or 25 mandates to work on internally, they have their own mountain of work as well. And actually gathering the amount and volume of candidates that you do need to go through and screen is quite a daunting task. So that's sometimes why you would look at partnering with an external agency. As well, if you have an internal recruitment function, one of the limitations, as well as, getting to capacity, is actually that sometimes you're not able to directly headhunt, depending on your market, depending on, your territory. If your hunting ground is your two closest competitors, sometimes it's a little bit touchy if you want someone directly like reaching out from your business with your business name on it to directly headhunt. So sometimes there's a little bit of buffer, and some businesses just don't have an internal search function, an internal recruitment function. So that's where a recruiter could really help. So working with a recruiter is, you need to spend a lot of time with us up front if you choose to engage, because we need to know about you, your market, what you're looking for, what your culture is, because then we need to go and externally post the role, whether that be confidentially, creeping around in the background with no external posting, whether it be posting it externally onto job boards, unbranded. Maybe you want to leverage, our network and the branding that we do have as well, because we have over 25,000 building materials professionals just in Canada that we're directly contacted to. But we need to be equipped with your trust and the information in order to go out and accurately represent your business to the market. It's more than just going out and reaching out to the right candidates and, finding them. It's, building that knowledge base into us that we can go and really make, an appropriate first contact on behalf of your brand. So we go out and we search for candidates. We do sourcing through database, adverts, headhunting. Most of my candidates, I would say, I get through network referrals. I might call somebody up in the right area or with a similar organization and say, hey, who do you know who's great? Because people tend to only recommend good candidates and good people within their network. So that's really effective. So having that deep industry network is really important. You should expect that your recruiter will screen your candidates and conduct the first round of interviews. So not just a quick 5-minute, where do you live? How much do you want to earn? What's your title? Where will you commute? It's really a full screening interview, which typically takes 15 to 20 minutes, and then conducting a first round of face-to-face interview over Zoom or Teams or even face-to-face in person if you live in the same geography before presenting that candidate to yourself. So once they come, they should be like pretty whittled down. That long list becomes a very, concise short list. A recruiter should be presenting candidates to you with detailed notes, including things that we're not sure about and we don't have the information to test them further. I really like them for this and this reason. I wasn't able to tell if they had this network, so you're going to want to probe into that in interviews. Just kind of our watch outs. A recruiter should be then coordinating interviews and controlling feedback and communication through the client and the candidate at every stage of the process. A recruiter will then support offer negotiation, often working closely with, if there's an HR business partner and the line manager and the recruiter. So probably all talking together is usually the best way to make sure that there's no information gaps. A recruiter should be providing two documented references. You can go out and you can validate a name and a date, and it's not usually that valuable. So, hopefully you can get your recruiter to go a little bit deeper and take more of a testimonial type interview reference where they'll speak to a previous employer and find out, what motivates them, what were areas that you needed to coach them in the beginning, how do they respond to feedback, that, deeper level of information. A recruiter can also facilitate any sort of background checking that you need completed pre-employment. A recruiter will stay close to you to ensure that everybody knows where they're supposed to be on the start date, and then also keeps in touch with client and candidate as a conduit for information once they've started, just to make sure that everything is going well. It is fairly well documented in the recruitment industry that a recruiter can really smooth that transition for the first 18 months. So that was a lot of information. So before I move to the next slide, does anybody have any questions about any of that? I promise you the slides aren't all this long and wordy. Okay, I'll move on then. So when to reach out to a recruiter, it depends a little bit on your organization. Because some businesses like to, post locally. Some of our clients like to, see who they know in their network first. I never take it, any offense if I'm not the first or second call, but when you do get stuck, and you need someone to come in and really dive into the search, that's often when we get the call. But ideally, when you would reach out is, before you need any sort of urgent help, because getting to know each other, having a recruiter in your back pocket that you like, that works in your industry, or just gets your business or gets your geography before you need it, and you've kind of laid the groundwork of that relationship, can be really helpful for when you need to move quickly. When a role is really urgent or critical, someone resigns and there's no one else in the business that can, do that function, and they're leaving in 3 weeks, getting on the phone with a recruiter as quickly as possible to give yourself the most time is ideal. We get a lot of our business, just because clients may not have, again, that internal recruitment function, and they don't have time to do it themselves. I'm sure if you're a hiring manager and you're on here, you've had the time where you've maybe posted a role and you get 200 or 250 applications that are just not even close to what you're looking for. Just going through those applications takes a lot of time. So if you just don't have the capacity, or it's going to take you away from your main role or your business, that's where we can really help. Um, we also do a lot of work, and all of this is very broad for segments of the recruitment agency, not just specifically us, but I do talk first person because I'm presenting. But when the role is confidential, we get a lot of confidential work that we work on. So if somebody is needing to unfortunately be replaced within a business, if they, a client doesn't want to make their competitors aware that, they've lost someone specific, or they're, promoting someone and they're bringing in some talent behind it, we do get, calls for confidential searches more often than not. Also, when you need a really specific skill set or industry experience, if you need a trust designer, you can't just go out to any segment of the market and hire a transferable skill set. You need to go in and find somebody that's currently doing that job, and try and entice them over to your business. And when you want to directly headhunt, we can, be that channel where optics are important, and you don't want to be going in and headhunting directly from your competitor across the road. It doesn't always breed the best relationship, and especially in, smaller regional communities. But when you do need someone with that skill set, we go out and we look at the entire market, and if they happen to come up in the search, they're included. But hands are somewhat clean, and unless you say, we'll always clear a search saying, is there anyone you specifically want, and is there anyone that you have a competitive agreement with that you're not going to pull and they're not going to pull from you. We'll also respect those lists. So the more information that you can equip us with, the better. Any questions about that before I move on? So in terms of engagement, if you don't know a recruiter, it's always recommended that you ask for someone that, from your network. Ask a peer within your business, or an ex-colleague, or someone that you know in your network who they've used. Were they successful? Because some segments of building materials, um, the industry works differently than other industries. We have different timelines, we have different busy periods, we have different sales channels, and we have different, pull through. So understanding your business can really cut out a lot of time. And then also your recruiter will know where to go if, for example, the, channel experience or customer experience is important. They don't need to reinvent the wheel. They kind of know where they need to go. And then also people recommend people that they liked working with and had success. So it's usually the quickest way. I would also, always recommend asking a lot of questions to a potential recruitment partner, including what types of roles they work on. Sometimes people are really specific. They may work on only sales roles. They may work on only administrative roles. They may work on only finance and accounting roles. So just understanding the type of role that they've been successful on, and asking for a couple examples of recent searches that they've been successful on. That shouldn't be privy information. They don't need to tell you who the client was or anything, but you should really get comfortable with the fact that they are comfortable with the requirements of the position that you need them for. Also, what industry they work in. There are lots of generalist recruiters out there. Some absolutely will have some building materials experience, but just knowing exactly the types of organizations that they typically work with. Um, I think you should always ask somebody what their network is like and what their track record is like, because everyone has a network, but understanding maybe how long they've worked in the sector, if that is important to, understanding and getting the right person and having the reach, you should definitely know what that is. Um, and how understanding how they work and how they find their candidates, because there are different types of engagement that different recruiters will take on in terms of work, and then having a good knowledge of fees and guarantees. I highlighted the one at the bottom. I think it's the most important is, do you like them? Do you trust them? And do you want them representing your business? Because again, as in the previous slide, this is someone that you're going to need to equip with kind of your commercial, like the sell, the go to market, the how do you want them going out and engaging candidates on behalf of your business? Okay, any questions? I'll move on. So this sometimes gets presumed that people from outside the industry know, and it's not, as clear all the time. But these are the basic types of recruiters and often solutions that go with those different types of firms or recruiters. So you have your staffing agencies. Um, that can also include local agencies. Local agencies may do staffing, maybe do contingent and retained. It can be a little bit of a mixed bag, so that's why I point that out. But staffing is typically a more high volume, administrative, or labor based firm where they have an active database of candidates, or they'll go on to, an Indeed and find live active candidates that are, saying, I'm really willing to work. And they may send you, a volume of individuals. If you need someone to work in a lumber yard, as an hourly worker, that might be the type of agency that you would go to. Um, you there's often a line, if you imagine it, between staffing and contingent search. Often contingent based searches don't do a lot of staffing type roles, especially the hourly, because it gets into what is at risk work. And there's a very different insurance and liability that you take on as an agency to do, staffing type roles, labor type roles. So for example, our business would work on a warehouse manager, but we wouldn't do warehouse hourly labor workers just because the type of labor is much more at risk. So it's a different classification of kind of insurance and risk that you take on as a business. But staffing agencies will probably usually mostly do those types of roles, and may not work up into the management level of position. Contingent search is where you instruct an agency. You might even ask one or two agencies to work on the same role. And the idea is that they'll go out to the market, they will post the role, they will, see who they have on their database, and they'll supply a number of candidates. And if you happen to hire one, they will charge you a fee on a successful placement. So that's quite common. Retained search gets into where you're working more closely in partnership. You're working with one dedicated agency who is going out and, as I said, representing your business. This can come with a bit more of a tailored marketing campaign. This is where we start to get into headhunting and targeting specific skill sets and going out and reaching out actively to the market. So it's not really relying as much passively on candidates applying. And then you have your executive search branch. I don't know if you can see him because I have my, can you see him now? Executive search is getting into what you would typically see, as specialized exec search firms do. Our firm does it within this very narrow industry as well, but it's going out, it's market mapping, it's finding out who the competition is, it's going ahead and conducting an entire search on behalf of the client and in partnership with the client for senior leadership roles, and then coming up with a short list of typically 2 to 4 candidates who then go into a subsequent interview process with the client. So all the client is involved in interviews with all of these individuals outside of staffing. Sometimes they may just hire over the phone. If you really need someone to start on Monday morning, you have somebody that can do so. Sometimes those agreements, but contingent, retained, and executive search all then feed into the client's preferred interview process.
And Alex, do you mind
Yeah.
if I just regarding staffing? So because I know like the WRLAs actually work with a partner LMO, so even for our trade show and stuff like that. So if you are, let's say, in need of some staffing like that in terms of masses, whether it's moving inventory, whatever it might be, we do have that, and I'm happy to make that connect. You can shoot us an email, and we can make sure to make an introduction for you.
Wonderful. You can send that to me too, because often our clients ask us for those types of roles and we don't do them. We don't always know who to recommend. But if you're vouching for them, then absolutely, I'd love their contact information as well. Any other questions before I move on? Is that all clear? Okay. So the main advantages of working with a recruiter or a recruitment agency is really access to a hidden talent market. So especially someone that's specialized in their industry, whether it be building materials, whether it be, alcohol and beverage, whether it be FMCG, whether it be IT, whatever it is, you want somebody that is really in tune with their network, because the longer you work in it, the deeper that network goes, and you can make those types of calls, where you call someone that lives nearby and works in a similar sector and say, who do you know? I need a regional sales manager in Ottawa. Do you know anybody good that you would recommend? You really start to build trust and communication with that market, and that opens up a lot more potential candidates that you can tap up when you have a difficult search. And also, a lot of people aren't actively applying to jobs, and they don't have a LinkedIn profile. Many in building materials specifically, it's an industry where not everyone is online. So it's knowing how to access them, where to find them, where to look, and then how to get a hold and how to entice them. So speed and efficiency. Um, you're hiring someone that, this is their full-time job to take on a search on your behalf. Obviously, you need to qualify if they have the capacity to take on your search at the speed that you need it. But if they do have capacity, and they're dedicated to that search, we would usually expect, I would expect anyone in my team to deliver their candidates, at least 1 or 2 profiles, at least to get the process rolling within the first 2 weeks, often sometimes faster than that. Candidate control and influence. I don't think it can be underestimated. I'm sure everyone that, as a hiring manager has had a candidate just ghost them at some point over the years. And it's very frustrating, and you often don't know why. Having a recruiter kind of in the mix, it can't always stop that from happening, but candidates really become almost dependent and reliable on the advice of a recruiter that they know and trust. They come back to you over and over. A lot of our candidates become our clients in future, but we really try to get to know them and their motivations and their drivers and their family situation and what's not working in their current organization and what they're looking for and the type of manager they respond well to. We really try to get down deep so that we can understand if it's a good fit, and then share that with our client to make sure that they believe it's a good fit. So that all kind of translates into influence, because when they go at the end of a process, well, look, I have this offer and I have this offer and I can't decide which one I want. They pay about the same amount of money. We can go, okay, without, just selling them your opportunity, we can go back to the beginning and influence on the factors that they said they're looking for and match those with what you have on offer. So there is an elevated element of candidate control that comes with working with a recruiter that's working very closely in partnership with the candidate. And negotiation and onboarding support. I know sometimes recruiters get a bad rap, and there certainly are those out there. But a really experienced professional recruiter should sit between the candidate and the client during a negotiation and it can make it more seamless. Some clients like to negotiate directly with a candidate. That's fine. We're happy to be hands off. But sometimes we're able to control a candidate that all of a sudden at the end of a process goes, I want 20 grand more than I said I wanted at the beginning. We can help unpack that and put them kind of back in the box that, they had agreed to from the outset. And at the same time, if a client comes and tries to cut down the value of a candidate at the end of a process and we know it won't be successful, we can sometimes sit in between the two and try and, work through those kinks and figure out why people are saying the same thing or not saying the same thing that we did at the outset, because we hear both sides of information throughout a process. So it's really just trying to keep the consistent flow of information moving throughout a process, because again, like I put at the bottom, nobody likes surprises at the end of a process. Any questions there? You're not just tired of hearing me speak? Okay, I'll move on. So the building materials industry, we do have factors that aren't unheard of in other industries, but we do have a lot of them going on at the same time that we try to stay aware of. So succession planning, we get asked about all the time. We get asked about it by our clients who they know they have multiple retirements coming up. Many have been very successful in the last 3 to 5 years of actually pushing them off with retention bonuses and having people stay a little bit longer. But we get a lot of calls from our clients that have known these retirements are coming up. All of a sudden, somebody is maybe, really burnt out, or they're having some health issues and they're leaving within a month. And all of a sudden, that legacy information disappears. So when we kind of advise our clients on succession planning, the earlier you know about it and you can plan for it, if you can have someone do a 3-month or a 4-month or a 6-month handover to get, legacy information or from a retiring employee that's maybe been in a business for 10, 15, 20 years sometimes, the better, because it is a really aging workforce in building materials. So we need to be hiring new people into those roles. Talent development and diversity. So we also spend a lot of time working with our clients that may be out of options, that maybe the industry keeps hiring individuals who are doing the exact same job and they've moved from, one competitor to another, to another, to another, and now they're kind of out of options for, people who are, wanting to come into that role. We really are encouraging our clients in building materials to look at transferable skill sets rather than just client and account knowledge and industry knowledge. If you are a strong and committed manager willing to get somebody up to speed, if you hire on skill sets, some of the strongest, especially the reps that we've been hiring for some of our clients, have come completely outside of industry. They've maybe come from big organizations with good training. They know and believe in using, a CRM or a sales system. They, know how to plan a route, deal with multiple customers and many stops in a day. They can come with a lot of transferable skills that translate really well to the industry. And we also haven't necessarily sold outwardly to other segments of other industries about how great, how stable, how strong the values and culture and histories of many of the businesses in building materials are. So we also need to do a better job promoting the industry to individuals looking at it from the outside in. And an interesting statistic, and I just wanted to pop it in there, but we did a Canada-wide salary survey in conjunction with the WRLA, the LBMAO, Bienfait ici, and we had over 1,000 responses of just building materials reps, just working in building materials just in Canada. And we found that in some markets, females are actually out earning males in comparative positions. So we don't often hear that kind of a great stat. So I think focusing on diversity, on gender diversity, and on individuals coming from other segments of different industries can be really advantageous. Mention this very briefly, but building materials works differently than other industries. So, we need to be aware of, going and finding people that kind of match the culture, the values, the way that our industry operates, and selling it accordingly. And having a recruiter or recruitment partner that understands what those peaks and troughs look like can be helpful, because you don't necessarily need to go and reinvent the wheel when you're instructing someone on a role if they understand how a dealer-based business works. Also, connected industry is good and bad. Because everyone seems to be separated by a very small degree of separation. And that works really well if you can go to the market and say, I need an outside sales rep, and your competitor or someone in your network down the street knows somebody. Often they're looking too, though. So it becomes difficult when you need to headhunt and everyone knows everyone. So again, it's that degree of separation between you so that it's not becoming an issue between businesses that you're directly headhunting. Any questions there before I move on? So if you're not really familiar with engaging with external agencies, or you are, and maybe it's worked, maybe it hasn't, maybe it could work better, these are the core questions that I think everyone should ask when you're figuring out who you want to work with. So again, what types of jobs do they work on? Do they specialize in a certain area? You can ask them, if they're interior, if you're working in interior BC, you can say, what were the last 2 jobs you placed in Kelowna? Or if you're in Vancouver, you can say, what are the last 2 jobs you've placed in the Lower Mainland? So you can be specific and ask your questions, because anyone that does this for a living and is pretty switched on and in tune with their work and the industry, they should be able to give you pretty generally what they're working on, what they're good at. The industry that they work in. So if it's not building products, what is it? Might be comparable and it might work. It might be totally out, and then you want to ask a few more questions to make sure if it makes sense for your business. Asking them what their track record is. Often, if someone's had really successful long-term client relationships and placements, they're happy to share some references with you. We ask all of our clients at the end of a process, for feedback. Is there anything that we could have done differently? Would you be willing to, write a testimonial or a referral if it's gone really well? People should generally have that if this is kind of their core industry. Understanding how they source candidates and who does the work is important as well to understand. There are different types of agencies. There are what is called like a 360 recruiters, which is what kind of DMC does, which means that we manage the client and the candidate search process and make sure that we're hearing both sides of information to get a successful candidate that meets in the middle. Some agencies will have an account manager that will call you or will come and meet you at your office. And then they will, then share that mandate with someone in the office that will actually do the recruitment and contact candidates. And then they'll meet together, they'll present you the candidates. So that's just the different way that they work. So just understanding what works for you and how they work is just a question to ask. Defining the type of engagement, what they do, how they work, and then what your expectations are. Typically, that kind of conversation around the solution that's appropriate for you will come out between you. Because if you have a fixed fee of $10,000 and you're looking for a senior VP and you've contacted an executive search firm, that's not going to probably be the best fit. So just figuring out, a space where you meet and what the right solution is between you. Discussing fees and guarantee period will come out of that solution conversation as well. And I mentioned previously a couple slides ago, but understanding what their timelines are and what their capacity is to take on the job, also important to know. Does anyone else ask any sort of question that they find is helpful when determining who to work with as far as a recruiter? I know that there's some HR professionals on here. Do you guys have anything else to add? No? Okay, I'll move on then. People typically have a lot of questions around fees and guarantees. So fees are typically calculated as a percentage of a candidate's first year of compensation. Typically, that's a base salary. We do sometimes in sales roles get into conversations where it might be a very low base salary and there's a guaranteed commission component for the first year or 2 years. If we're looking for a $40,000 candidate and that's all they get and they eat what they kill and nothing's guaranteed, we would charge that fee based on the 40,000. But if they're guaranteed 150,000, we need to meet somewhere in the middle because we're not looking for a $40,000 experienced candidate. We're looking for someone with more experience. And then that is where we would have sort of a negotiation. So if that ever comes up with a sales candidate specifically where there's a lot of variable compensation, sometimes that's where a fixed fee might be negotiated. There are some firms, specifically staffing, some local agencies, even some contingent firms that will also work on fixed fees. And that's kind of to determine between the two. But guarantee periods is something really important to understand, to discuss, to negotiate, because a guarantee period is almost as important as the fee that you pay. The lower the fee, sometimes if there's a negotiation, sometimes the guarantee needs to go down, but 3 months is typical in the industry. So a guarantee period is if a candidate leaves the business, is let go because they're not performing or they said they had a skill set and they don't, outside of like the business being sold or something that's completely out of anyone's control happening, the guarantee the candidate leaves or you let them go within 3 months is typically you would get the free replacement as a client. Now that's typically for a contingent search. Our main guarantee period that we offer at DMC is 6 months. But whoever you're talking to, whatever the search is, understanding what happens and having a recruiter that's really going to be as dedicated to filling that refill during the guarantee period is really important, because if they're going to walk away or disappear as soon as that replacement is due, that does happen from time to time. So you do want to make sure that you have that strength and partnership that they're going to be there to refill it in the unfortunate and unlikely event that that person doesn't work out. Also make sure that you receive a contract, make sure that you read it, make sure that you ask any questions that you have. And then if there's anything that you need to share with your recruiter, that's also important at that point. And that could be, we do not headhunt from this business. It's our sister brand across the street and we have a different name, but we don't want to be pulling people from there. Whatever it might be, you can kind of lay the foundation of the relationship at this point. Any questions on fees, guarantees?
I have a quick question on the guarantee period. So are those often negotiable? So if people come into this and they see like, okay, let's say 20% of a salary, and especially if it's a higher function, can employers come in and negotiate with their recruiter to say, hey, we'd like to extend this to a year? Like, is that common? Is that something that people do?
So a year would be really long. A year is what we would probably, we would reserve for senior leadership and executive search. Um, if you have a lower fee, so if let's say there's a negotiation and a client wants to work at a much lower fee, often the guarantee period has to go down. Like something has to adjust in the relationship. So if, a client of mine wanted to extend to a 6-month guarantee, we would be looking at the type of engagement to ensure that everybody's happy, because you have to do the work twice, so you have to both be willing. um, as well, we want our placements to work out. Sometimes they don't. Sometimes at the very outset of a relationship, you should just, what's the typical fee? What's the typical guarantee period? Get to know each other, because until you know the type of individual that, does well and thrives in that organization, it gets easier to guarantee for people for longer, periods of time as you get to know that organization as well. But it's usually a two-way negotiation. It's the fee and the guarantee, and sometimes they go up and down accordingly. So just to stress, the thing, if you're working with a recruiter and they're a professional recruiter, and especially if they're dedicated to your industry or they're dedicated to the type of role that you're recruiting, you know, building a partnership is really important, and it's going to benefit everyone ultimately. You're going to be spending time together. You're going to be, needing to brief them on not just the role, but the organization, the culture. You're going to need to spend time exchanging feedback, why the candidate hit the brief, maybe why they didn't, and what we need to do differently. But the more we get to know our clients, the better we can instruct, inform, and find the most suitable candidates for the position. I have clients that I've worked with for the last 12 years, and the partnership is so strong that the fine print on the contract is, it's set. It's more about someone can call you up and say, "Hey, Alex, we need another David, but we need them in Toronto." Like, I know now through legacy information what David does, what he's like, why they like him, because it is that constant exchange of information. And it's like any, client or account development. It's the more you get to know each other, the better it works. It saves you time in the end, where you can spend time talking about how this territory is new and what they'll need to do, or how the product line that they're going to be introducing to the market is new. Like, you can brief us on what's different rather than just going from A to Z every single time. And, someone that's in it for the long haul will want to spend the time and invest in that relationship with you as well. And the closer you work together, the longer you work together, maybe the higher volume of roles you work together on, that can also benefit your fee and guarantee agreement as well. So just a few case studies. I only mentioned Mitch because I think a lot of people know him. But we get involved in a very wide and wild variety of roles. And I just wanted to highlight a few different types that aren't just your typical, we've promoted someone to a sales manager, so we need a new outside sales or territory sales rep. These were like really specific, out of the box kind of searches. So I guess many years ago now, we placed Mitch over at the Cedar Shop. They needed some immediate leadership support, as well as succession development within that organization. So we worked with Bev, placed Mitch, and he has now taken that business forward, is doing lots of different things. But that was really successful, an unfortunate situation that we entered into, but really ultimately the best case scenario where, he didn't just go in and steer the business. He really helped to contribute to make sure that, the succession support was in the organization going forward. We worked with Richelieu, their NEOS board program, where they really decided to enhance the board program in Western Canada. It had kind of been present, but they really needed to increase expansion and put in 2 dedicated reps, one in BC, one in Alberta. So that was like a new product introduction or redefining a product that had been around but maybe not pushed to its full potential. And then Ames, we've recently hired a sales manager into a regional branch manager position. And that was, a female diversity hire. We're loving to see more and more females take on leadership roles within the building materials industry. Still lots of work to do to have more equity within those leadership roles, but as often and as we have an appropriate candidate for those types of roles, we like that our clients are also focusing diversity hiring within their organization. So those are just a few recent roles, or I guess recent but notable roles that we've worked on. So just to kind of close, and then I'll ask if anyone has any questions. Talked about this a little bit briefly, but this is the importance of choosing someone that resonates with you, that resonates with your business. If you're in building products and you want to hire someone that doesn't work in building products and teach them the ropes, you should just pick someone that really understands your organization and you and the culture of your business, whatever that looks like, because you are going to be spending time together and you don't want to be dreading speaking to that person because the interaction level, especially in the middle of a process, can be quite high. And then the time that you put into that relationship, the more you will get out of it, because we can't assume things on behalf of your business. So getting to know one another, especially in the first few roles, is really important. We need really detailed feedback. We need, if we have to go back to the drawing board, we don't mind, but we need to know what we're looking for. So the more detailed, the more specific, the more time you can contribute into the relationship, the better it will be for you. Okay, so I know I've done all of the talking so far, so I'm hoping some of you might have a few questions. Does anybody, if it's okay, I'll stop sharing now and then maybe I can see the panel. Okay. Does anyone have any questions?
I wouldn't say I have a question, but my biggest takeaway from that is I think it's whoever's using the recruiter really needs to know what they want and what they expect, because that's pretty much just screams volumes for how it's going to go at the end of the day of your candidate that you're going to pick there, because that came through a few times there. It's you need to communicate to make sure that you have the right information to you to get that candidate. Yeah.
Yeah, and it is two-way because we may push back and go, okay, I know
Mhm.
that you want a purple squirrel. A purple squirrel is not available on the market within the salary band that you have suggested. But what we can do is we could get you this, or we could get you this, or we could get you this. What are your thoughts? So, a recruiter ideally is not an order taker. It's somebody that knows the reality of the market
Yeah.
and that can come back and collaborate with you with what the market is saying, doing, expecting, how it's moving. So that's a really good point. Is yes, like if you're working with a staffing agency, you can just say you need somebody to show up at this time and do this type of job, and they need to have this certification. But when it comes to more skilled or more specific type roles, it does need to be a collaborative conversation.
Awesome. Yeah, I'd like to add to that too, like where you guys kind of said, like you can act as like kind of a mediator in the hiring process too, to make sure like both sides are kind of kept in line to what was agreed on before. I like that too. That was really interesting.
And one thing to note as well is like sometimes we're good to be in the middle of a process because we
Yeah.
have some clients where maybe we're working with a CEO or a VP of sales, and we're also working with the director of HR. And maybe not the VPs of sales ever do this, but maybe they're saying the budget is one thing and the HR director is saying it's another thing. Making sure that you really understand what that line in the sand is so there's no
Hmm.
discrepancy, no misinformation at the end of the process is really important too, because sometimes even from two sides of the business, you'll hear something different. We're not there to push either side. We just really need to know what we're working to.
Absolutely.
Alex, there's actually a really good question in the chat, and I can read it aloud for you.
Sure, I'm not checking that, so that'd be great.
Yeah, it says, I am always interested in partnering on updated current salary information. Do you collect that data for Southern Alberta regularly? This is both a question for WRLA and for the recruiting firm. I can let you go first.
Yeah, so we are, constantly doing salary reports from the market. They're a huge amount of time and undertaking and reaching out to the market. So we've actually just released our 2024 report. We've done that one for building materials sales reps in Canada. And we do segment for the various associations that we work with by region. So we did do one for Western Canada, and it was 2 years apart from when we did the previous survey. So we actually were able to publish very heavily on the comparative data. But if there's ever anything specific that you want, I have a marketing analyst that works with us. He has taken a lot of information on everything. So it might not be published in the report, but if anybody ever wanted something really specific, I could get him to dive into it and get that information. But yeah, we are aiming to do the salary survey for sales reps every 2 years, because every year it maybe doesn't move quite enough, but every 2 years seems to be a nice information block to compare. Currently, we're doing one for sales directors in US and Canada. And then later this year, we're going to be doing a salary survey for branch managers, building materials, just Canada. So we're trying to come out with a different variety of information rather than it all being sales reps. And if there's ever anything that you want to suggest or you'd like to see, we're also open to, trying to take a steer for what the market wants. We publish them. They're free of charge for the industry. It's for our benefit. It's for the benefit of the associations that we work with. It's for our clients to have real concrete information. So you can always request them through our website as well, and they'll be sent to you directly.
And just for the WRLA in terms of support, so we work with DMC actually to distribute their survey to collect data for our members as well. So that's one. And then once the data is actually completed, we post it in our yardstick, we hand it out, we mail it out, that kind of stuff. But on top of that, like I know the WRLA is actually building out what's called an occupations manual. And it's more of like a career map. So, and I think part of that, I know phase one is getting the careers, like, so if I work in marketing, he'd start as a marketing assistant, then marketing coordinator, then a marketing director, et cetera, et cetera. So it maps it out, but we're looking to incorporate salary data in that as well. It won't be from a survey, but it would be just from kind of general, like using an analyst doing some research and stuff like that too. So I know we've also partnered with like the government of Alberta, government of Saskatchewan, stuff like that to do funded reports through the government. So we did actually a labor study in Alberta, but it wasn't focused on salary and remuneration. It was more focused on kind of the economic impact that our industry has with salary data or with workforce data, pardon me. So we do have stuff like that. So just shoot me an email if you want me to resend it to you. We're actually revamping the advocacy section of our website, which is where that would live. And then I'll let you know as soon as the occupations manual is developed, then we'll have that out as well for members.
Is there anything that I covered today that you didn't know about external search firms? Did it add some value? Hopefully. If you have any other questions or you want to know anything, I'm happy to send along salary surveys or answer any other questions as well offline afterwards.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Alex. And so what we'll do is actually get an email from Camilla from our office, and she will actually send out the recording, a copy of the recording and a link to it as well as Alex's presentation and her contact information if you need to. And we'll include my contact information and Matthew's as well if you guys have any questions for us. But thank you so much. And thank you, Alex. This was incredibly educational and some good details in there. So thank you.
Thank you for having me. Take care.
Awesome. All right.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks,
Bye.
Alex.